Hello indie game fan, 2D Zelda-style action-adventure games are a classic genre, so upcoming games begins with Vessels of Decay, one that is set in post-apocalyptic Scandinavia and has awesome pixel art and action, being the perfect game to get us started. One of the longest in development titles is Spindle, where you play as Death himself, taking place in a world where nobody dies anymore, resulting in disorder and chaos. So it is up to our protagonist to find out why. Of course, he will not be alone and does have a pig as a companion for some reason, where I have seen this character in other crossover games, with this game looking to be pretty well made. Another long in development title which seems to have recent signs of life is Outrider Mako, a Japanese themed title where our protagonist needs to deliver packages in the world of the gods. The pixel art here is awesome, and most curiously, combat involves jumping on top of enemies, which is not common in a top-down action-adventure game, where there is a clip of shoot-'em-up style action as well, where it simply looks fantastic, so hopefully 2023 will be the year. A newer game that I want to showcase is Fowl Scourge, a boss rush title where you play as a plague doctor, where every encounter with a patient is a boss fight. The theme is great, as is the pixel art, especially in the hub area, where it does remind me of something like the Texauces, but of course much more traditional in the combat department. An impressive looking title is Crystal Story Dawn of Dusk, one that has the classic 16-bit look as well, drawing visual parallels to something like Earthbound, but it is a full-fledged action-adventure game rather than a turn-based RPG. You play as a character from a place known as the Dawn Side, now having to travel to the Dusk Side to save her brother who was kidnapped by a demon, having to use a variety of weapons and even fire magic to do so. Most impressively, it has a Final Fantasy style airship, which allows you to explore the world, which is not that common in this genre, so it is nice to see some cool mingling of ideas that makes this of interest. Hazelnut Bastille is further down this list, since it is another one of those long in development titles that I'm not sure will ever see the light of day, having been kickstarted quite a while back, where the developers are still giving updates on Kickstarter, but I don't know when this will be done. This is one of the more Zelda-like titles on this list, where a heroine adventures to a new continent in search of something which was lost to her. It does look good though, where the developers perhaps made the unwise move of announcing an 8-bit prologue to this game named Dawnthorn, which was supposed to be in development at the same time as this game, where based on what I know, one game in development is tough enough, so here's wishing them all the best. Another game which I've showcased a number of times is Elementallis, also being successfully kickstarted, and from the title, does of course have you using elemental magic to your advantage. There are a total of 8 elements, which I believe are conveniently split up into 8 dungeons, where it promises somewhat of an open structure where you can get the powers in whichever order that you choose, but of course, one leads to another, since certain elements grant you access to previously closed off areas, Metroidvania style. In addition to exploration, the elements are also used in puzzles as well as combat. We are able to combo them together, such as creating a pool of water and then using lightning to shock enemies. This was initially slated for a 2022 release, but it got delayed to this year, so look out for this title or subscribe to the channel and I'll let you know when it does. Totemic is another game that has been delayed from one year to the next, from 2021, 2022, and now it just has a generic coming soon as its release window on Steam, where the first thing that you will notice is that this game is very blue. It is of course set in some sort of cold environment, where a heroine wields an enchanted axe with the ability to absorb the powers of her enemies, which then changes her form and colour, looking pretty alright. A grim-looking title with a combat focus is Zealot, where you play as a man of faith in a world overrun by pagan gods and their followers. It is based on Slavic religion and folklore, where if you played The Witcher, you will know how messed up some of the monsters can be, which increases the potential for horrifying enemies to battle in this game. Religious themes aside, the action looks good, although I don't know if the visuals could use some work, since it's a little flat and very green for some reason, but it is still one of interest. One of the most beautiful entries on this list is Kloa, Child of the Forest, where you play as a human child having to cleanse the forest of a curse that is slowly killing the land. I recently read somewhere about how corruption is one of the more commonly used antagonists in games, and that the colour purple is often associated with that, so it is not exactly treading new ground. But again, exciting combat, puzzles and exploration makes this one to watch, rounded up of course with the great pixel art. Okay, this next title might stray a little bit more in the survival horror direction, but since I generally don't cover horror games on this channel, I do want to give CONSCRIPT a special mention. You will of course notice the visuals first, which has a PS1 era look to it, where it is set in the trenches of World War I, where you play as a French soldier searching for his MIA brother during the Battle of Verdun. It looks to be harrowing and intense, where I believe chemical weapons and hallucinations may be included, which leads to detention, in addition to the combat encounters with enemy soldiers looking fantastic. One of the more promising 16-bit SNES-inspired titles is Shrine's Legacy, most curiously having co-op support for 2 players, but can be played in single player as well. This seems to have quite a classic story of an evil force coming to your small town and then threatening the world, where two heroes, of course, have to save the day. Elemental magic is at the center of this game, where you do need to get and harness these powers, used, again, in combat, puzzles, and exploration. I generally like the pixel art here, although some of the bosses do look a little bit off, but the co-op support does still make this a title of interest. A title that I'm not quite sure fits here is Rōnin Trail, where you play as a samurai who is aimlessly wandering the countryside after the war ends, as he is essentially unemployed. There's more of an open world structure, including survival elements like having to make camp, cook and eat fish, as well as equipping warmer clothing when the seasons turn, where the katana-focused combat is the central focus. I'm not usually a voxel art person myself, but I do think that it looks amazing here, where the combination of art, theme and action makes this one to watch. One of the most ambitious titles is Aethyr, an open-world action-adventure title that says is inspired by the golden age of JRPGs, but I believe that's referring to games like Secret of Mana and Alundra, with more of an RPG system in this. For example, there's a crafting system and multiple skills that you level up by using them more often, RuneScape style, with dungeons to delve into, treasure to find, and even bosses and locations on a more cosmic scale, making reference to something called the Astral Dream. Again, the pixel art looks fantastic, where the environments and enemies all look great, though I do wonder what the main story structure will be like, given that it is an open world. There is still no official confirmed release date as of yet, where it was kickstarted in 2018 and did have a demo for Steam Next Festival last year, so all signs are pointing towards progress and release. The ultra-whimsical Scrabdackle is one to put on your wishlist, also having a successful Kickstarter campaign where you play as a novice wizard venturing out into the world for the very first time. One of the more interesting things about this game is that it is non-linear, which means that you can explore in different directions, possibly having multiple endings, and where certain paths can even unlock shortcuts and so on. Combat looks like a delight with your spell slinging abilities, where I really love how this game looks, reminding me of the worlds that the Behemoth creates with games like Pit People. Dialogue is completely optional in this game, where you can even walk away mid-conversation, so I'm curious as to how that might affect the game. It did have a tentative release window of summer 2022, which of course has since passed, but I have very high hopes for this one, made even more impressive since it's from a solo developer who does the art, music and programming. I just talked about Radio the Universe since I got a demo for this Steam Next Festival, where the demo has really impressed and made me want more. It's a top-down title set in a very grim post-apocalyptic world where you play as an immortal wanderer travelling through the ruins of the city. It does have a little bit of a Signalis vibe, but does of course have more action and is not so much survival horror, so here's hoping 2023 will be the year, since it will be more than 10 years since this game was kickstarted. Of course, the next title from the developer of Shovel Knight will be high up on this list, where Mina the Hollower looks to carry on their legacy of modern 8-bit titles. You play as a mouse with a whip, having to explore and save a cursed island. This does seem to be the tribute to both Castlevania and Zelda, as Shovel Knight was to Mega Man, but the action does look good and I really do love the throwback pixel art as well. Needless to say, you don't bet against Yacht Club Games, where it had a tentative release window of December 2023, so let's hope it releases this year. Ho ho ho, I do have some delicious news for you. This dark fantasy pixel art action-adventure game has long been on my radar, going way back to even before its Kickstarter campaign in 2019, and has been a constant feature on this channel, where Hunt the Knight did get an updated release window, and it is very soon in March this year. You play as a member of the Stalkers, having to protect the world from the horrors of the night. There is a curious, cyclical nature to this game, and frankly, the world at large, where in this world, humans ruled the day, but when the night comes, humanity is annihilated, where the Stalkers found an artifact that temporarily stopped this cycle, but of course, nothing lasts forever, and the night is once again beginning to get a foothold in this world. Our main character is the daughter of a traitor, having to prove her worth to the Order by hunting down these creatures, but where she's also able to tap into dark magic. I really like the boss designs shown off in this trailer, but the grim world sure does remind me of Bloodborne, so even while it may finally be moving off the upcoming games list, let's hope it's good and will become a permanent feature on the best games in the genre video instead.
Once upon a time, there was a plucky squire named Jot.
I'm honestly still stunned by The Plucky Squire, since this is an amazing looking title that uses both 2D and 3D, from the pages of a storybook to a 3D environment, looking a little bit like Mario Odyssey in concept, but of course has more of a Zelda influence. I absolutely cannot wait to play this, and Devolver looks like they have another fantastic title on their hands.
A world he never knew existed.
Surprise, surprise, I have a very special game here since it is both a Zelda-style action-adventure game, but also a monster taming title at the same time. We are able to befriend a variety of monsters which can then fight by your side, with systems like cooking, and a whole bestiary to fill out, which makes Creature Keeper my #1 pick, where you can find more pixel art titles in this video.